Good morning. My name is Crystal Valentine, and I will be presenting my research project entitled The Equity Studies Classroom, Utilizing Teacher Identity and Pedagogy. Sorry. So this project came from a deep reflection on my own goals as an educator and my own values on equity and social justice in education. The Equity Studies courses were implemented in Ontario in 2013, but there's yet to be a fully or like a comprehensive study on teachers' experiences of teaching these courses. So that's what I aim to do with this study. So Ontario is the most populous province in Canada, with over 140 different languages and 200 different ethnic origins identified in the 2006 census. So naturally, our classrooms also reflect this immense diversity. The Toronto District School Board conducts its own census, in which it reported that the majority of students, about 71%, identified as a visible minority, while only about 31% of the teaching staff identified as such. In response to the diversity of the province, there were calls for equitable teaching practices, and the province released its equity and inclusive education strategy entitled the Realizing the Promise of Diversity in 2009. So this document outlines the research-based strategy for increasing student engagement and achievement through constructing a learning environment that students find themselves actually reflected in. And so part of the strategy included the creation of these courses, which was also the result of activism by 4 undergraduate students at the University of Western Ontario, now Western Ontario, called the MISP Project, and that led to the implementation of gender studies, equity and social justice from theory to practice, equity, diversity, and social justice, and world cultures courses in the updated curriculum in 2013. So given the increased interconnectedness and diversity of the province, teachers really are encouraged to be critical and self-reflective about their teaching practice, their own identities, and the identities of their students. To realize the promise of diversity as the province aims to, teachers need to be equipped to make their teaching practice equitable and socially just. Thus, my research project focused on the central question, which is, what are Ontario secondary social science and humanities teachers' experiences of teaching equity studies courses? The overarching inquiry was broken down into the following subsections. So first, what are teachers' reported strategies for teaching equity studies and their perceived outcomes? What is their pedagogy for teaching equity studies courses, and what challenges and or experiences do they experience? How do teachers perceive the effects of their social position on their instructional approaches? And I was really concerned with how they perceive their identities and their social position on their relationships with their students, with their pedagogy, and the learning environment as a whole. So in order to answer these questions, this study was conducted with a qualitative research approach. I started with a review of literature on how teachers understand their social identities, their definitions of social justice, classroom practices on the student-teacher relationship, and instructional strategies for social science and social studies classrooms. I then conducted an in-depth semi-structured interview with open-ended questions with 3 teachers, which allowed me to delve into the complexities of their individual experiences as equity studies teachers. So purposive and convenient sampling and snowball sampling, procedures were used to find and select participants. Each participant had to meet the following criteria. So they had to have more than 2 years of teaching in the secondary school context. They needed to be OCT, or Ontario College of Teachers certified. They had to have previously or currently taught an equity studies course in a public secular school, and currently teach in the Greater Toronto area. And so all my participants did meet this criteria. I found the first participant, Storm, through one of my professors, and Storm led me to Raven. My third participant, Molimu, was selected through a mutual contact. All of the participants chose their own pseudonyms. So Storm is a trained intermediate senior teacher qualified to teach Spanish and social sciences. She has a Master's of Arts in Spanish language and literature and a PhD in curriculum studies. She's an instructional lead for the Department of Equity and Inclusive Schools at her school board, and is also a sessional faculty member in the teacher education program in Ontario. So Storm has been teaching for 11 years and has taught the equity and social justice from theory to practice and the gender studies courses since 2013. She identifies as a Latina woman, second-generation Ecuadorian, mother, and heterosexual. Raven completed a Bachelor of Arts in Environmental Studies and Geography, a Bachelor of Education with a specialization in social justice education, and then a Master of Education. She worked in alternative education for regional municipalities and correctional facilities before starting at her current and only school board. in which she's taught there for 13 years. Although she's only qualified to teach history and geography, she has taught the Equity and Social Justice from Theory to Practice course since it was implemented in 2013. And she identifies as white, heterosexual, woman, and a mother. And so finally, Molimu has been teaching for 12 years, but spent almost 30 years in private industry selling complex robotic systems. So he has a bit of a different background. He has taught extensively in the history department before teaching the Equity and Social Justice course from Theory to Practice. When I interviewed him, he only taught the course for one semester. When his interview was conducted, he identified as well as a Black South African man. So these following themes emerged from my research findings: the relevance of equity studies in education, experiences of race and racism as motivation to teach equity studies, teaching philosophy and self-reflexivity in the equity studies classroom, instructional approaches and student engagement in equity studies, and the influence of colleagues on the experience of teaching equity studies. So the relevance of teaching of equity studies in education. And so the participants considered equity studies to be relevant and dynamic spaces for students to challenge their assumptions around issues such as race and sexual violence, to learn new concepts, ideas, and people, and find their own voice. So educators believe equity studies to be relevant and relatable to real-world issues that are currently and consistently present in students' everyday lives. And so they believe that equity studies is connected to students' own experiences with oppression and injustice, and they sought to engage students with their lived experiences. And in doing so, the teachers perceive that the courses will empower students to find their own voice as they explore and uncover how their lives are connected to wider societal institutions. And so Raven explains, if they're having experiences that I don't have because of the body I'm in, how do I then make their argument stronger? I saw these equity courses as a way to create the space to allow these students to understand the theory and the practice so that they could make their voices heard. The participants identified that experiences of race and racism in their childhoods and in their interactions with students and colleagues impacted their desire to teach. And so it really described how the way that they describe their experiences demonstrates that they're not alone in trying to translate their experiences and beliefs about social justice into the classroom and the school community. And so the sense of awareness of who they are and what they've experienced and the influence of those factors on their desire to teach demonstrates the self-reflexivity that reportedly contributes to their overall teaching philosophy and practice. So Molimu, who grew up in apartheid in South Africa, says that's always been the driving force for him in terms of how he connects with students, with young people, with colleagues. That's kind of my energy source in terms of how I teach and what I'm interested in. Sorry. In terms of their teaching philosophy and self-reflexivity, they really understood equity studies as both a discipline and an approach to teaching. They recognized the flexibility and fluidity of their teaching philosophies and the influence of their own identities on their practice and their philosophy. And so they were really demonstrating a sense of reflexivity that influenced how they engage with course content and the students in their classrooms. So Molimu explains, students look at me and they want to figure him out, right? Like, where is this guy from? He has a bit of an accent. So I have to explain why I am, what my upbringing was, what's my vision, what drives me, so to speak. Raven also explains, knowledge is not power, it's what we actually do with knowledge. It's what we, and how you actually engage with that knowledge. If I think of education as a mode of emancipation and sit along kind of what Paulo Freire talks about, in that there's this way in which we need to approach teaching and be teachers as well as learners to democratize the space, to shift the power dynamics in the classroom and to allow learning to happen. Additionally, they were really unconcerned with making mistakes and were open to learning along with their students. They didn't express a need or desire to be experts in the classroom, but they actually made a point of identifying themselves as learners. And so Storm says, as equity people, we have to understand, number one, we're not perfect, and number two, we don't understand everything there is to know about equity because she got schooled with some of her students' projects. The following theme on instructional approaches and student engagement in equity studies highlights these teachers' reported instructional approaches to teaching equity studies. So the teachers used a variety of instructional approaches in their classrooms to help to handle student engagement in different ways. So they emphasized the necessity of making the classroom student-centered in order to capture and maintain student engagement. And so Storm says it's important to us to know who students are, what they're about, what they want, what they need, and then let it drive the course Otherwise, it's just you coming down hard. So, okay, you're going to copy in all these overheads and these PowerPoints. And she says, they're really not going to care. Finally, the influence of colleagues on the experience of teaching equity studies. So teaching equity studies reportedly presented challenges that were more political in nature, such as the selection of teachers, but a lot of it was also around this necessity for finding support through administration and colleagues when you're wanting to implement these courses and wanting to to teach them. And so experiences of colleagues range from administrative support when introducing the courses to team and co-teaching, collegial backlash, and the selection of teachers best suited for the courses. And so really the possibilities for innovation and transformation, like transformative learning experiences, are heightened with collaboration and colleague support. Additionally, the support received from fellow teachers was perceived to provide teachers with a sense of community that allowed them to feel less isolated in the work that they did. And so Storm was explaining, a lot of people in equity, I find they feel like they're alone. But if you know who to work with, who to connect with, more things are possible. So the implications. So teacher participants had doubts about the qualifications and self-reflexivity of other equity studies teachers and their impact on that impact on the courses themselves and the students' learning experience. So, for example, one of the participants was doing a professional development course with other equity studies teachers, and she really centered it around race and racial identity and racism, and the teachers she was presenting to really were hostile to that idea of bringing race into the classroom. So it implies, too, that these courses, the way they're taught, the content that's included shifts drastically from teacher to teacher depending on their comfort levels and how self-reflexive they are. As well, the direct connection that teachers made between their social identities and their interest in teaching the equity studies courses suggests that the other teachers may be as deeply connected to the equity studies content as their students and wish to engage in the curriculum in personal ways. It also suggests that there's inherent value to taking these courses for students, and the benefits are actually observable. So the teachers shared experiences of witnessing or becoming more aware of their students' lived experiences and experiences of marginalization, and they connected those experiences with the course content, hoping to empower students to better understand their experience and vocalize them in productive ways. And so these equity studies courses may actually provide the only outlet for students to discuss the real connection between personal experiences and academic and political course content. And so the courses were implemented in the teachers' schools, through their own activism, suggesting that the onus is on teachers to fight for the courses to be included in their schools. And so the leadership demonstrated by the teachers implies a commitment to teaching the courses and a belief that the courses are actually worthwhile. So the following recommendations kind of emerged from those implications. So at the school level, principals should really be open to helping teachers implement these courses. So supporting teachers as they seek to introduce these courses would be beneficial to developing their overall capacity for leadership in their schools. The public support and encouragement would assess teachers who face colleagues who may be hostile to their efforts to implement equity studies courses. So the unwillingness for teachers to engage in a critical analysis of their own race and race in general means that teachers should be provided with professional development sessions that allow the space for teachers to navigate implications of their social identity marker on their teaching practice. So developing professional development sessions that are non-confrontational might help assist teachers in learning about race in a way that is really crucial. However, teachers should also be willing to engage in self-reflexivity in order to provide the best learning experience for their equity studies students. So in conclusion, the opportunity for educators to discuss their practice is an important part of developing teacher practice for both pre- and in-service teachers. As a teacher candidate and future teacher in just a few months, I am dedicated to and concerned about the positioning of social justice in education. And so this research study really allowed me to explore my own beliefs about equity and social justice education. And I began this study really rooted in my belief that education is the conduit through which change, small or large, can be made, and that students can be empowered to make those changes with the right educational experience. And so equity studies courses are a distinct way to merge personal experience with academia and allow students and teachers alike to feel a visceral connection to education. Thank you.